Welcome on and all to the third part of the special Cinemalaya Film Festival series here at the Cinegeeks Podcast, where movies, TV, and all things geek collide. This is still Roy, still joined by my lovely co-host Angela.
Hello again.
Hey Angela. And so we are on day 3 or the third part rather. Oh, day 3 then, actually.
Yeah, technically.
Technically. We just took a day's break kasi meron isa pang event that we attended. We're gonna post more about that on our socials and on our website. Pero as for the main Cinemalaya series that we're doing today, yun nga, we're back after a day's break.
Part 3 of 5.
Part 3 of 5. Yes, and for today's 2 movies, we will be talking about, first off, ALIPATO at MUOG by JL Burgos and Basho by Jaime Pacena II. Just before we continue then over to the films, we just want to welcome the newbies dito sa ating Cinegeeks Podcast circle.
Yeah,
we know that,
we see you.
There are a lot of new followers on the podcast.
Yes.
So thank you for following us, our podcast. And we hope you continue to join us even after the Cinemalaya Film Festival has ended.
Yeah.
And also, we can see then that there are a lot of listeners
yes,
who are returning listeners. Pero unfortunately, hindi naka-follow. Yes.
So, para hindi nyo ma-miss yung mga susunod namin mga episodes, especially during the Cinemalaya series, please consider following our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's free lang naman. So,
Yes. And by the way, we would love to hear about your thoughts about the films that we talked about, or we are going to be talking about in our series so far, and the other films after this festival. You can just comment on the section below sa Spotify. You can also comment it on our socials, and you can also shoot us an email at cinegeekspod@gmail.com. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started and talk about the first film that we have for today's episode, which is ALIPATO at MUOG. Okay, so this is actually a feature-length documentary by JL Burgos, as mentioned. And on the website of the Cinemalaya Film Festival, the logline is as follows. A filmmaker uncovers the hard truths surrounding the enforced disappearance of his older brother. Yan. So, bit of background lang. Okay, this is about yung kay Jonas Burgos, the activist that was abducted back in 2007. And siguro nung panahon na yun, nasa high school pa ako.
naalala mo ba yung balita nun?
Yun na nga yung nakakaano eh. Part nung parang sobrang chilling effect niya was how at that point in time, sobrang parang normalized ng mga ganong crazy na nangyayari sa panahon natin, no? I mean, we're not gonna be political about this. We're gonna be looking at it strictly as a film, as a documentary.
Yeah.
Okay? Pero, ikaw ba? Nasa ka ba? High school ba? College ka na ba nun?
2007. Parang first year college.
First year college. And ikaw ba? Anong ano mo dito sa yung events? Anong parang personal... Where were you?
Ako kasi I've always followed eyewitness even during high school, which is why I chose my course, which is broadcast communication. Yon, I think I saw this in the news during the time. Hindi ko lang maalala yung details.
Yon.
Pero na-encounter ko na yung Jonas Burgos case. Siguro strictly from a documentary film perspective lang muna.
Yes. Sige. Before you continue, what did you think of ALIPATO at MUOG?
Yeah. Sobrang impactful siya sa akin in such a way na, alam mo yung, there are things that are happening right under your nose. And things like these are normalized na parang kapag nagpe-play siya sa balita, it's just white noise. And watching this film, parang naibalik niya yung humanity ng mga victims ng forced disappearances. Yung mga aktivista na mislabel or nare-red tag. And yung struggles kapag nawala sila. Yung mga naiiwan nila. That's yung visceral emotion na yon na binabalik na hindi lang sila just names being mentioned on the news. They are people with lives, with mothers, with children, with brothers, with hopes and dreams na ninakaw sa kanila because of just fighting for what they believe in. Parang ganon. And naibalik niya yung pagiging tangible nitong mga pangalan na to. Na parang pinapaulit-ulit na lang nila like it's a chant.
Yes.
It feels so real and so close to us. Watching this. And habang nakikilala ko kung sino si Jonas Burgos, pinakilala kasi nitong documentary film na to kung sino siya bilang tao. Hindi bilang victim ng forced disappearance. Ikaw, ano bang parang initial thoughts or reaction mo?
Ano naman, kasi as far as documentaries within the Cinemalaya spheres are concerned, with this is just about siguro the second we've seen after last year's Maria. So, strictly from a filmmaking perspective, I'm gonna look at this and say na parang this was a better done documentary kasi the documentarian themselves conducted this story in such a way na hindi niya siya sensationalize. Hindi niya ginawang rallying cry yung kwento ng kapatid niya. Hindi siya nag-make ng parang cheap appeals to emotion.
Yon.
Kasi ito just again, no politics. Looking at this strictly as how they are made. Last year's Maria was, for me, very problematic. Kasi we were following women who were relatives of victims of the Duterte drug war. Yung mga na EJK. Ganun. And all well and good yun. Kasi we deserved to know their stories. So para siyang, to some extent, nagiging para siyang yung alipato yung takbo ng Maria last year Ngayon, ang pinaka hindi ko lang, that didn't sit well with me at all, was the inclusion of an individual para lang masabi na in the same vein siya as Maria, which had very little to do with the people that we were following initially. So parang andun siya pumasok sa yung appeal to emotion na, sige, wag naman sabing cheap, sige, fine. Pero parang medyo naging a bit manipulative na siya. Parang dahil kasi nung panahonan nung time na yon sobrang fresh pa nung eleksyon. And parang they wanted to appeal to an audience that was clamoring for more of this person. So parang that's not a documentary anymore. That's propaganda. Yun.
Pero going back to Alipato at Muog.
Going back to Alipato at Muog, I commend JL Burgos for displaying such superhuman levels of restraint.
Grabe, no?
Emotional restraint in the way na pinoportray niya with actual footage, archival footage.
With him in the shot.
Yun yung pinaka-sobrang stunning part dito na parang, oh my God, 2007 was just 17 years ago, pero it feels like forever ago na. And seeing those events in those, na ganun yung lente, parang sobrang parang sa tumandok ka nung last episode sinabi natin na parang yung, that film doesn't shame you into parang the sense na you're just being educated now. Ito din na hindi kanya sinasabi na parang, di ba, nakalimutan mo ba si Jonas Burgos? Hindi Parang, yes, of course, time has passed. Time is a constant in everybody's life. It's going to parang make things disappear from our minds. I'm sorry, no pun intended. Pero yun na nga this documentary does a beautiful job of reintroducing, tama ka doon sinabi mo na, and restoring,
humanizing.
Yes, restoring the humanity, humanizing the victims of enforced disappearances. And yun na nga, babalik tayo doon sa yung kung paano siya piniresenta. Never once siya, ito yung gusto ko din doon never once siyang nagpakita ng mukha niya, si JL. Unless kita siya nung camera, nung mga old footage na ginamit nila. Pero hindi siya yung parang tumangin siya sa camera tapos kinausap niya tayo as an audience. Hindi. Strictly talaga siyang naging about the facts. And that's what I loved about this.
Even if he was, alam mo yun, it's acceptable for him to be embittered about the events. Especially, he's so close to the subject.
Yes,
diba? Pero,
exactly.
Yun na nga yung pinaka-admirable about it was parang he distanced himself enough as a creative to really approach this story as a film talaga, as a documentary film, and not as parang propaganda or a PSA about the disappearance, parang about the forced disappearances.
At saka yung isa pang dito is yung sinasabi ko to sa'yo kanina after we saw it, he has all the right in the world, to use your term, to be embittered about this event in their lives bilang pamilya. Pero never mong makikita yon dun sa gawa niya. na parang he's trying to make us feel exactly how his family feels, how him and his mother and yung widow and daughter nung kapatid niya. Hindi eh. No, he allows the camera, essentially the audience, to be a silent observer, a silent impartial observer into this story na yun nga, unfortunately, a lot of us have already forgotten. Pero ang ganda na this doesn't shame you for forgetting Jonas's story. In fact, it parang refreshes your memory and makes you...
Reminds you that it's still happening.
Yun, exactly.
Tsaka, ito isa pang detail na nagustuhan ko dito. It was very gripping, especially in this day and age na true crime is like the in thing. Kasi parang ang approach niya is ganun nga, very almost clinical to the point na talagang nagpe-present siya ng mga evidences ng mga screenshots and all, ng mga footage and ng mga testimonies. Like it's a true crime documentary.
May isang sequence dito na sobrang gripping. Di ko alam kung nakita mo kasi I think
lumabas ako sa saglit.
He was able to make a text conversation feel so tense.
I think naabutan ko pa yun.
Oo. Yung ganon, kasi yun na nga eh. I'm sorry to use the term exciting, but the film was able to make the search for the truth exciting. And parang as an audience, you want to be
you also want to get to the bottom of it din.
Yun. Pero yun na nga yung parang yung thesis statement ng sine na this is a crime without the solution. So, as much as we have all the facts with us right now, unfortunately, hanggang ngayon, hindi pa natin alam kung ano yung kasagutan sa tanong. Pero, it doesn't make this tale any less compelling. Yan. Ikaw, anything to add before we wrap up sa Alipato at Muog?
Ako kasi mahilig ako sa true crime documentaries and anything true crime. Yung pakiramdam nito, it feels like parang unsolved mysteries or mga cold case.
Yun. Yun. Exactly.
Pero, this is much more than that kasi this is happening inside my neighborhood. Parang gano'n. In my turf. Kumbaga. So, this is much more compelling, much more heartbreaking, and much more gripping.
Yes. I definitely agree. Ako naman, siguro just to wrap this up real quick, I commend the effort again of JL Burgos in crafting a very straightforward, unemotionally manipulative look at the facts. And it's that parang lens na the impartial lens that we see the facts of his brother's case is what allows this to be a very compelling and very parang enrapturing na parang ride for the audience. It really wants us to know more about the case talaga. Yan. And as far as this is as a documentary is concerned, it's one of the best films, one of the best documentary films that we've seen this year so far.
And it should have its own category.
Yun din. Oo. Alam mo, yun na nga eh. Dapat magkaroon na rin ng sana next year, Cinemalaya should have its own documentary feature length.
Kasi ang gagaling ng mga documentary films na napanood natin.
True.
I mean, even Tumandok was a documentary fiction.
Well,
pero to encourage more documentary filmmakers, they should have a separate category for them.
That's true. Kasi parang ang hirap naman i-judge yung documentary against a work of fiction.
Let's say ito tsaka
Errand.
An Errand.
Yun.
It's apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges, tama. So dapat Cinemalaya, please, sa 21, make your own category for feature-length documentaries. And also documentary short subject, huwag niyong isasama sa shorts. Yun, kasi yun na nga parang nakaka-disservice.
Even books have separate fiction and non-fiction sections, di ba?
Exactly. So for Alipato at Muog, we're gonna be giving this a rating of A.
Yes.
Yes. Very spellbinding documentary, if I should say. So you have to see this if you can. And okay, let's go over to our next and final film for this episode, which is Basho, again by Jaime Pacena II. So the logline on the Cinemalaya website is as follows. As two estranged half-sisters reunite at their father's funeral, they mend their differences, find solace in shared grief, and become instrumental in the city's ongoing recovery. Yan. Movie stars Gabbi Padilla, and may parang sinabi natin na this is the second of the series na the Gabbi Padilla Japanese Cinematic Universe.
Hindi, trilogy pa lang naman.
Yung
Kasi
trilogy
dalawang
next
movie
year.
pa lang eh.
Yung next year yung magiging niya. Yung trilogy niya.
Japan-related, no?
Japan. Last year, Gitling. Ito naman, Kono
Ay,
Basho.
may tawag dun sa ganun eh. Kung may parang Anglophile, Nihon file ba yun?
Parang ganun nata, siguro. Ikaw, sige, search mo.
Dali. Alam ko Anglophile is for, England or Britain.
Japanophile. Merriam-Webster.
Merong Japanophile? Ooh.
Yan.
Is Shinichi.
Shinichi Kudo. Saan nga ba siyang anime? Si si Detective Conan.
Shinichi Kudo.
Ay, nako. Anyway, sige, baka pa tayo malihis dito. Further. So, ayun na nga, again, Gabbi Padilla has made another Cinemalaya film na may Japanese influence yung kwento.
So, ikaw naman, Roy, you go first this time. What did you think of Kono Basho?
Ang hirap niyang, again, ang daming mga gantong klase ng movies na it's not really very plot heavy. It's not plot driven. It's a kind of film where the emotions of the protagonist take center stage. Yung situations that they find themselves in. If I may say so, para siyang yung female version ngayon ng The Errand. Of course, An Errand. A very different setting story, of course. Pero yung ganun siya at its core. It doesn't ask us to strap along for the ride and parang get to the bottom of the mystery of the story. Hindi. We see two hurting people basically trying to recover from so many levels of trauma. And I'm not going to go into detail about what, kasi we again want you all to experience this whenever you can, fresh. Pero siguro basically lang parang service level lang na table setting. Gabbi plays a Filipina who flies over to Japan, and she attends the funeral of her Filipino father na merong Japanese family. And she knows na meron siyang Japanese na half-sister and yung ang asawa ng father niya na Hapon. So siya parang immediately, this setup almost lends itself to quote-unquote parang self-parody Especially sa Pilipino na parang dapat lagi kapag ganun yung pinitch mo na conflict ng isang sine, dapat melodramatic siya. And again, I am so happy na we are finally steering clear of unnecessary melodrama just to elicit emotion from the audience. Yan. Where this film soars, aside from of course the technical na talagang sobrang ang gaganda ng mga vistas na sinushoot, of course by the one and only Dan Villegas on the lens, is how understated in the sense na hindi sobrang flashy, hindi sobrang parang kailangan merong grand sweeping speeches na magpupunta sa iyakan yung pagkakasulat ni Jaime Pacena II, especially since there is a potent source for those kinds of parang melodrama from the conflict between the two sisters. Ang sa akin lang na parang gusto ko pa sanang makita was more of yung perspective mula nun kay half-sister. Yung sa Japanese na side is played by Arisa Nakano. Yan. Pero ikaw ba, did you feel na they were able to flesh out this relationship and this parang conflict that's brewing under the surface between the two sisters, the siblings?
Actually, yung dynamic ng two sisters reminds me so much of, unang-una, dahil siguro sa setting and because of the sisters din, parang I can compare this to My Neighbor Totoro. Na parang,
oo, tama, oo.
It feels a lot like Hayao Miyazaki in terms of the look and feel, tapos yung tackling grief,
yes,
and yung disconnect ng family, or in their case sisters, na parang the cultural differences that they have gives me naman parang actually malapit din talaga siya sa Gitling kasi yung language barrier parang plays a lot into their miscommunication and disconnect. Hindi lang yung dahil dun sa circumstances na they find themselves in, ganun nga na they're half sisters and they only met parang ganyan dun sa funeral ng dad nila. Parang yun yung sa akin. Feeling ko naman na i-flesh out naman ng maayos and beautifully and napaka-poignant nung pagkaka-portray nung connection and the disconnection between the two sisters.
Yun na nga there's not really much to pick apart about this film or parang dissect. Kasi on one end, these are the kinds of films na parang to most audiences are, let's say, parang aloof or parang sobrang niyang inaccessible. And naiintindihan naman natin na may mga ganong klaseng parang pananaw yung general audience about it. Pero again, siguro it depends din with the expectations of the people who come into these kinds of films. Kung ano bang ini-expect nila. Ini-expect ba nila ito na out and out na iyakan? Or is this a very introspective na look at grief and healing and parang kung reconciliation, yung mga ganong klaseng bagay. Kasi, again, babalik tayo dun sa fact na we have had for so long these kinds of stories of films, even TV shows that have tackled this topic. It's basically teleserye fodder. Pero we again commend the creativity of creatives, of writer-directors like si Jaime, in that nakahanap siya ng way na admittedly is very unusual for a Filipino production to undertake in terms of these kinds of stories. And again, props din kay Gabbi Padilla kasi she still brings her A game as the lead dito sa kwentong to. Pero ang sa akin talaga, and I gonna ask you if you agree or not, ang talagang nag-shine dito is si Arisa Nakano.
Oh yes.
As Reyna.
Napaka-affecting nung mga scenes niya.
Grabe.
Especially yung mga talagang emotional moments niya dun sa movie.
Oo. We don't really see kung ano yung parang depth ng kanyang filmography. Hindi siya actually para masyadong madaming productions pa na kasama siya. Pero parang yung pag-acting niya is super parang veterano na. She holds her own against Gabbi in this film. Talaga. Yung acting na puro mata-mata. Yung talagang emotive.
No acting.
No acting. Sobrang galing. Galing talaga. Shoe-in for Best Supporting Actress.
Ako naman, one of the things that I can add was nagandahan ako dun sa ginawa nilang backdrop, yung isang parang tragic event in Japan's history.
Yes.
Na parang grief is all around them. And it's easy to just give in to that. Especially they just lost their dad. And alam mo yon, parang overwhelm ka na lang dun sa wave of grief na parang nagdadala sa'yo. But then again, parang this place, yun yung meaning nung Kono Basho, can be very different things for you. Depende sa kung paano yung perspective na pipiliin mo. Tsaka inano din nila feature din nila yung Japanese parang concept of kintsugi ba yun? Na what is broken can still be beautiful.
Ang ano niya, sobrang simple lang niya, pero ang lalim nung tagos.
Sobrang poignant.
Nung mga metaphors, nung mga knowing looks, the acting, the lines, everything was talagang very, very quietly beautiful. Talaga. Kung meron lang tayong masasabi na parang, I don't know if this is like an Ayala thing sa sinihan natin, pero while we were watching it, parang ang ngongo nung dialogue.
Meron ngang something, may mga moments na mahina yung audio, tapos bigla naman siyang lalakas.
Tapos, it's not about yung kung mali yung pick up or not. Kasi may mga times na may napipick up na malinaw na salita. So, parang ang nangyayari, yung off-screen dialogue is clear, pero pag yung dialogue nung nasa gitna, yung pag-subject, parang may pagkangongo nga.
Muffled yung audio minsan.
Oo.
It might just be the cinema that we were in.
Sana.
Pero otherwise, kahit nga yung musical scoring niya, napaka, yun yung isa pang nag-give off sa akin ng Hayao Miyazaki vibes Yung music. Kasi ang ganda ng music. Napaka-sweeping.
True. Then, we credit that to Len Calvo. Very, very beautiful score. Talaga. Yun nga, ang ganda nung, everything just works. Sorry, we can just go around in circles dito saying the all praises about this film. Pero yun na nga, we've said all we can say. This is a very beautiful film.
And one more thing is, ang sarap sa mata nung cinematography.
Oo.
Grabe.
Dan Villegas eh.
Napaka-screensavery.
True.
Para siyang spa for the eyes.
Yes. Super. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up for
Shout out to Gabbi Padilla. What's your Japanophile movie gonna be next?
Ayun. Actually, yun nga. Excited na tayo dun sa sa third part ng Gabbi Padilla Japan Cinematic Universe for next year's Cinemalaya. Alright, so for Kono Basho, we are going to be giving this also a Cinegeek rating of A. Yeah. Very, very heartwarming as a cinephile today. Yung mga pinanood natin. So,
both about grief, actually.
Actually, yeah. Pero in terms of yung quality of the films themselves, sobrang nakakataba ng puso talaga. The movies that we are seeing this past few days are some of the best.
Painfully beautiful.
Painfully beautiful films talaga.
Still
Super.
following the Cinemalaya's theme of pain.
Pain. Alright. So, I guess that wraps up this episode of the Cinegeeks Podcast. Part 3 of 5 of the Cinemalaya 20 or Cinemalaya 20 special series. Again, if you have thoughts, you have questions, violent reactions about our thoughts about the films we talked about, you can comment it on our Spotify comment section. Comment on our socials as well, or send us an email at cinegeekspod@gmail.com. Alright.
Okay.
So, for my lovely co-host Angela, again, this has been Roy. Thank you very much for listening to the Cinegeeks Podcast, where movies, TV, and all things geek collide.